hip hop, hip hop,
Yeah,
hip hop, hip
bars is back.
hip hop,
SamAnt
hop,
O'God,
hop,
what's
hip
up with you?
hop.
I done watched them niggas do interview after interview. They not culture vultures, the culture something they been into. So if you never gave them a view, I recommend you do. Cause when they question guests, they message is not subliminal. It don't matter if you a rookie or at your pinnacle.
MPC first, I had the MPC 2000, then I had the 3000. I now have the Renaissance.
Okay.
But I also have software too. So I keep a little bit of both. Like I have the Renaissance, like I mentioned, I have Native Instruments, the what was it called? The Machine Studio.
Okay.
And as far as software, of course, Fruity Loops, Reason Recycle. I've never used Ableton. I've heard some producers say Ableton's pretty dope, but I've never used it. So I feel like being balanced enough to have an educational hardware equipment from when I first started to now, and being able to infuse my approach and know how to use software, I feel like that balance has allowed me to stay relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with these new age artists with the melodic tones and all that stuff. And if you don't know what's behind the board, you can get.
What's so funny?
What's that?
I want to add to that briefly when you say melodic tones, and I feel like artists like a Drake, for example, like even some of his earlier records, it had that filter feel. Remember '90s era records where they used to filter the samples,
Yep.
And it just had that very hypnotic tone with the sub bass on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like what we did as beat miners, what P Rock and CL did, and so forth. And what I like is that when Drake got really big, he had elements of that feel, even if it wasn't necessarily sample based, but just very hypnotic, emotional tones to the records he was making, whether it's vocal samples that were like really cascading and ambient sound in the background to give it that emotional feel. I think those are the kind of records that led to what's going on in today's generation, where you have a whole genre of people where majority of this musical style is elements of all of that. You know what I mean?
Did they water it down too much in your opinion? Because it was something that it was just like such great ear candy and something that was dope when you heard it. It was like, God damn, I hear it all the time.
I think I would say it depends on the record. Some artists kind of do really well in translating, and other artists, it just goes past me like, I don't, it don't hit me. You know what I mean? So, I just like to see a little bit of balance. I like to see people that can make the kind of records that have substance, but also find a little level of entertainment.
Right.
I was just listening to some of Detroit 2, Big Sean's new release.
Yep.
And I just like how he balanced out, the now era, the 808, the trap, the progressive stuff, but still had like records that felt like real hip hop music. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it still has some substance.
Right. Did you work with AZ?
Yes. I've been working with AZ. Shout out to AZ since 2002. First record I ever produced for him was called The Essence, featuring him and Nas on the Motown release, Asiatic. That song got me a Grammy nomination that year for Best Rap Performance by a Duo. I think I lost to Outkast, understandably, because they were just killing it back then. You know what I'm saying? And this is right after I worked on Stillmatic with Nas. I produced Destroy and Rebuild, track number 9 on that album. You know what I mean? And off of the high of that, I got the opportunity to work with AZ, and then they happened to just do a whole song together, and it was just a good look. But ever since then, I've been working with A from when he went back to being independent after Motown and was dealing with Koch Records and a couple of little one-off deals he did to put out some mixtape albums and things like that. And I kind of was like not only producer, but A&R consultant and mixing some other producers' records for him, all of that. So I worked on the Asiatic album, like I said, on Motown. I worked on the Undeniable album. I worked on the Format album. I worked on AWOL album. Wow, he's put out a couple albums over the years,
Yeah.
Career. But of course, fast forward, I'm on the Do or Die 2 album, which I'm excited about. I think it's some of his best work yet. It has production from myself, Pete Rock, Rock Wilder, Buck Wild, Bink, KG, and features from Rick Ross, Davies, Nas, T-Pain. I'm letting the cat out the bag because I want people to look out for this shit.
That's what's up.
But the music and the lyrical content is his best work yet. I'm just really excited for him, especially coming off the high of being on Nas's latest album right now too.
Right. You know, I spent some time with around DR Period producer.
Oh yeah. Shout out to DR.
Yeah. Spent some years around him, and I didn't agree with a lot of what he said, but I did listen to everything he said, and he said that AZ was one of the most underrated rappers in New York and one of the best rappers he's ever worked with. I think I also heard you say that too. Can you talk about where AZ ranks as far as the greats in New York rap and why he's not mentioned enough when it comes to that?
I personally feel the main reason why he doesn't get acknowledged is because lack of mainstream accessibility. And what I mean by that is if his albums came out and was marketed and received to the general public, the equivalent of Nas's career catalog from when he first came out on Illmatic to now, we would be having a different conversation about AZ. You know what I'm saying? Because the music was there, but the mainstream accessibility wasn't. And that had to do with either the labels he was putting out his music with or the choices of records that they put out, to market. He's only had 2 major deals. One was with Virgin /EMI, and the other was Motown. And the last release on Motown, we're talking about 2002. So you're talking about almost, 18 years of independence since then? Am I right?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
To still be putting out music and not being heard and received the equivalent of when you hear a new Nas album or a new Jay-Z album or a new J. Cole album. If he was being received by the right platform where you can hear what he's doing as an artist and not have to dig for it, not have to find it or figure out he got new music out, I really think we'd be having a different conversation.
Yeah.
You think the
body works for itself?
I'm sorry. Yeah. You think Stillmatic was a rebirth of Nas's career?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you why. 2 reasons. One, from the business aspect, because after putting out the 2 or 3 albums prior, like Nostradamus and one of those, I forgot what the name of the other album. Even though Sony was putting those records out, they weren't spending a lot of money pushing those records. So even if you liked the music, you wasn't receiving it the same. And it took the whole thing with Jay. It took the pressure of making a great album. It took all those factors for Sony to be like, all right, we're going to really, really push this. If you think of those other albums before, can you remember any staying power from any singles that was released compared to when Stillmatic came out and he put out Got Yourself a Gun and he put out One Mic.
One Mic,
you see what I'm saying? It was more in your face. You couldn't miss that album. But then, of course, the body work spoke for itself too, because I think pressure bust pipes, and under that pressure, Nas just wrote a phenomenal album.
What record was album was the I Rule the World record with Lauryn Hill? Is that Stillmatic too?
If I Rule the album, if you talking about the song with Lauryn Hill?
Yeah,
that was the second album produced by Trackmasters. That was
okay.
What's the name of the album? It was written.
Okay.
Yeah. And that to this day, I think is still one of his biggest selling singles today.
Yeah.
We're talking about like top 40 charting pop realm type single successes, Yeah. From then to now, Nas has never focused on that. He's always put out great music and he's always had singles you remember. But I think he stayed more on the urban charts in terms of like Billboard and presence. You know what I'm saying? So, but always quality work. I mean, arguably, some people say he's not the best at picking beats compared to some other rappers, but that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah. Do you have like a wish list of people that you say, I want to work with this artist?
For me, for today, yeah, I would love to work with J. Cole. I'd love to work with Kendrick. As far as our generation, I think the Baby is kind of dope. What I've learned about the Baby, the more music of his I listen to, he's actually writing some dope stuff. It's not babble. You know what I mean? I want to feed that back to you and just make this a question answer part right here. In y'all opinion, do you think the mumble rap era still exists?
Yes. I have to say it.
Okay, so as far as the mainstream artists that's out today, would you compare them to like when the mumble rap phase was coined, when it really was like a lot of songs that you barely knew what they were saying, but
No.
it ended up hit records?
I wouldn't say that. I say a lot of the mainstream artists you see now, a lot of them are just lyrically talented, like the
A little more than when mumble rap first incepted, I think.
Right.
That's how
kind
I
of
see
wrong.
it too.
I'd agree with that as well. I just think that the only thing that catches me, I don't know if I still agree to say mumble rap's a lot more so because a lot of them use the same kind of style, and I'm used to such a variety of different kind of styles. You don't. Some of your favorite rappers, like you hear Busta Rhymes, you hear Jay-Z, you hear Biggie, you hear Nas, you hear Snoop Dogg. They don't sound the same. But then you hear the Baby, you hear Lil Baby, you hear Roddy Ricch, some very talented individuals, but they kind of sound similar. So that's why I get kind of turned off when it comes to newer age. But they're talented as hell.
Right.
Very talented. How do you feel?
I think, and then sometimes.